Guys, so this is part 8 of What If Kamen writer Genm was in RWBY. So let's start. Chapter 8, Let My Anger Go. Bullhead, warning. Geez, it's been like 4 days now and I've been experiencing so many feelings for a long time now. Then again, I still have to tell everyone about Kuroto and I. Because if I remember correctly, chances are that RWBY will bust into my room sooner or later to see Kuroto, who'll probably be asleep. Which would be a weird moment to see. Ah well, it's bound to happen anyways. Cracking my neck back and forth with a yawn, getting up from sleeping to the side of the bullhead. Oh morning Ace. John greeted, who's now feeling well, since his skin is back to his color instead of it being green. Morning John. I replied, stretching up while peeking through the windows to see Beacon Academy once again. Man, I'm still feeling that horrible sleeping position I took. I sighed. He shrugged. I guess you did have to save my butt from those things. So it's better if you take a break for a little bit, right? I waved it off. Nah, I'm not tired from that. My stomach grumbled in front of John, who laughed. I'm just hungry is all. I scratched the back of my head with a chuckle. You're just like Nora. Except she eats pancakes all day. He puts his arms up and groans. Every time I see someone stealing Nora's pancakes, they have to go to the nurse's office. For all I know, their conditions could be permanent. Wait, what the hell did she do? I asked with a look of shock. I guess you could say he won't be able to use his legs for a while. He and I both hissed. I feel bad for the guy. Then again, this is Nora we're talking about. She'll do it without hesitation. My ears opened to hear sounds of cane and footsteps behind us, meaning that RWBY is likely going to tell us the dash. We have arrived once again, you two. I'll expect the truth and nothing but the truth. I shrugged and held onto John's right shoulder, whispering him. John, we have to tell him what exactly happened. I said. No one will help you if you don't speak up for yourself or reach out towards your teammates too. He walks off, and ignoring my whisper, I chopped his head to not be a dumbass knocking his senses. Fine. I sighed and followed the way out with him. Beacon Academy, RWBY's office. Around the atmosphere it's been quiet. I've been really bored since John hasn't spoken up yet. Well, I can't blame him since RWBY's telling us to stop going in the Emerald Forest without a team or weapons. That, and Linda's been pretty pissed since I crashed through the windows from the 5th floor. I was lucky enough not paying for it. How they found out is by cameras, obviously. Not really a shocker since this is an academy that's supposed to be good in safety and preventing anything coming in that could murder everyone. Still didn't work in Volume 3, mind you. John gave me a look of a stargaze, I guess you could say, due to my awesome badassery fights. Totally was badass, and I know it. And now it's time I hear your explanations, the both of you, RWBY said. I looked at John, who was sweating nervously. He shook his head and I sighed and be the best broem to take care of him. Carden Winchester shoved John into one of the lockers that are capable of being sent to a random location. Bottom line, Emerald Forest. I said. RWBY gave me good look of analyzing my words and he nodded. I see. He turns his head to John. Is this true, Mr. Ark? I gave John a look of, it's fucking true, don't you ever damn lie. He gulped. Why yeah, I didn't bring any of my weapons with me when Professor Goodwitch was demonstrating what Ace said, so he took the chance to give it a shot. I sighed in relief. RWBY's eyes narrowed. I suppose that'll have to be all. You can resume your classes now. I'll have a word with Mr. Winchester. John gave me a look of fear in his eyes. I flicked his forehead. Stop being scared of Carden. Be yourself. You have to be strong enough to stand up, and I don't mean by yourself. I said, causing him to be confused. I meant you have to remember that everyone's worried about you since Carden's been bullying you at the start. John slumped down and took a deep breath out in order to relax. Yeah, you're right. I'll stand up and get stronger. I smirked. Not strong enough to face me though. I snickered, causing him to groan. He stood up from his chair, opening the door and looking at me. I need to ask Ashbin something, but I'll catch up with you, alright? I said. He smiled and closed the door, leaving Ashbin and I in the former's office. So, Ashbin, may I ask a favor? He raised one of his eyebrows, confused. Yes? I wanted to ask if you can unlock my aura? Surprised that I know what aura even is. How do you kn dash? I stopped what he was going to say with another lie. You and I both saw that John should be dead, but he has this thing called aura, which had helped slowly recover his injuries when I was busy killing the rest of the swarm. I said. Not even that, but I kept hearing aura from many students know that I'm supposed to be a solo huntsman, but... He shakes his head. Looks like we'll be here for a while, I suppose. Aura isn't just for healing. Alright, I forgot about the many monologues about the whole aura itself. It still sounds pretty interesting anyway. Aura is the manifestation of our soul. It bears our burdens and shields our hearts. It is also a necessary energy source for all huntsmen, or anyone here in Remnant. But it also has limits that the applications of aura in combat, with little time or heavily relying on your own aura, it will slowly decay to the point where they are left weakened or even incapacitated. I nodded. I know, and I'm the only one who doesn't have one. It's required to be in Beacon, I guess, according to the students here? I said. He nodded. It's why here in Beacon, we train them so that they can fully manifest their own auras. But the chances of unlocking their own unique semblance is unknown and to their potential. Yeah, I remember clearly that John's semblance is still unknown. We all don't know what specifically his semblance is capable of. I really hope I'll get to see it since I'm here. Is there any way that I can have my own aura? I asked, pretending that I don't know what unlocking auras can actually do. It's true I'd rather not have to undergo some brutal training, or some sort of accident to get my own aura. There is, but it requires through immense training, and enough willpower to fully do so. Is he saying I have to do it myself? Come on, man. I need aura to blend, I sorta don't, since bear in mind that I'm carrying a gamer driver that'll infect you right off the bat. And I tamed 3 Grims from the last few days as well. I shrugged. Oh, but isn't there like someone or something else that can make it happen without having to go through that? Taking a few minutes to think about my words, he sighed, standing up looking straight at me. I suppose it's been a while that I've unlocked a person's aura. So please, follow my lead, Ace. Understood. I said. I stood up from my chair as well, while looking around the room. Ashbin coughs to get my attention and hold onto my shoulders. I looked at his eyes in order to get this over with. For it is in passing that we achieve immortality. Ashbin's aura starts to glow. His words entering my mind itself through this, we become a paragon of virtue and glory to rise above all. I feel a slight cold hit my back and soon, I started shaking out of the weird going tingling all around me. Infinite in distance and unbound by death, I release your soul, and by my shoulder, protect thee. A glowing aura starts to slowly pop out of me, the color starts going white, gray, and a quick bluish white appeared, but immediately faded after that. So this is how it feels to have aura, something that I'll have to remember to watch out for. Ashbin starts to daze out a bit, I snapped my fingers in front of him to wake up. Hello? I mean Remnant to Ashbin, are you still alive? He shook his head and adjusts his glass spectacles. Interesting. I guess? I raised a brow. Although I feel fine for now, I'll need to badly wound myself just to feel that aura goodness. Thanks, Ashbin. I waved a goodbye. He stopped me for a moment with his one finger raised, exhausted as hell all of a sudden. Here. He presents to me a white box, albeit shaking a little. I gladly accepted this gift and titled my head. What's this? He sluggishly went back to his chair / your scroll. You'll need to have one here in Beacon. He said, and sent a goodbye wave. Already knocked out. Looking at this wrapped white box, I untie the bow and opening it to see an object that appears to function as a collapsible, holographic tablet. A scroll, I said. Right, I'll need it to make sure of my aura. Guess I'll take a look at more important research materials. I snickered at this little funny moment. Later, Ajpan. Closing the door behind me. I look at my schedule and time of my scroll to see that I still have time on my hands. Right, gotta meet up with Kuroto and have a talk about those proto-gasats, and what happened after the 40th episode of X8. Beacon Academy, Ace's room. I'm back, I said to the lying DEA Kuroto. Kuroto! I cried out and running, holding him up to see, his eyes closed, I get closer to see a snoring bubble on his nose. Arrow and Toro are playing with each other while Nero is just pinching the cushions for fun. Once the trio saw me they waved, or rather make their sounds. I chuckled and waved back. I then carried Kuroto with my strength and held him closer. Oh Dad! I chuckled with a little smirk leaking on my face. I quickly brought him to stand up and hold his right arm on my shoulder, holding tight on his pants. Pulling off a suplex to wake him up. Ouch! He cried in pain and groaned, struggling to keep his balance in, the tick mark showing how angry he is. Morning to you too, Dad. I laughed, holding my guts in. It's funny to do the pluwu I spat data when he starts running, pulling off a spear to my stomach. We started fighting each other, causing a major ruckus to the rooms around us, no doubt about it. We hear knocking on the door at first, but a loud bang. Stopping our silly fight, we turn our heads to see Team RWBY and Team JNPR looking at us confused. But also pulling out their weapons when they saw Kuroto. Oh no! I never thought this was gonna escalate quickly to let Kuroto accidentally reveal himself to RWBY and the gang now. But I guess there's the whole deal with introducing two characters from two different worlds. Although should I explain my world or Kuroto's world? That's a tough one. Alright, gotta stop them. He paled when he saw their weapons separately. I shook my heads with an X defense in front of them. Wait. He's not an enemy. They stopped and raised their eyebrows. I coughed to get him to focus. Kuroto stood up and understood. Having to experience the quiet atmosphere with the teams of two. Hi? Kuroto said. RWBY is the one to speak up. Hey Ace, who's he? Pointing at Dan, whose face turns into a wide smug. Fixing my hair and taking a seat on one of the cushions, Kuroto does as well. Arrow starts to take his nest on my hair. Toro lies next to me. And Nero on my right shoulder. I gesture the gang to sit down. They all complied so. We'll answer questions one by one, I said while stroking Toro's chin. Who's first? Everyone raised their hands once I said that. I pinched the bridge of my nose, annoyed with a sigh. Let's go with RWBY's question, since she already asked. They put their hands down and nodded. I scratched the back of my head, sweat starts falling from my head. His name is Dan Kuroto, he's my dad. Kuroto turned his head to me with a look of shock. Now I shit you not, their jaws dropped down on the floor. Which I had to hold in my laughter. Blake spoke up with her finger shaking. How? I guess you could say I now share his genes of sorts. DNA, for example. Once I said that, it caused them to have looks of huh? And oh boy, this is going to be a tough explanation. Weiss's face starts getting more confused. What do you mean he's your father? The both of you don't look alike at all. Looking at me and Kuroto back to back. I can't, I think we'll need more than an explanation. She slumped. I nodded, already knowing I had to anyways. Alright, guess a story first, then questions later. First off, have you ever believed in worlds other than this place called Remnant? In sync they shook their heads. I groaned. Well shit, how about different multiverses? They shook their heads again. God damn it. Alright, basically we're quite different and we don't cope with this world at all. John rose a brow. What do you mean, Ace? I face palmed. No, we're not from this world. We live in a world called Earth, it's quite different than how yours do. Kuroto simply crossed his arms. To put it simple, there's no such thing as these pitiful creatures called Grims, neither do we make customized weaponry on our behalf. RWBY gasped. What? In our first year of an academy, we would have to build our own weapon, she said. I shrugged. What Kuroto said is true. We really don't have a school that makes you build something like that. And even test them by slaying creatures made of whatever they are. RWBY dramatically fainted after hearing this. Yang got her sister before she even fell and showed her gauntlets. Why don't they? Kuroto and I had the same stoic expression at the same time. Because guardians/parents would be worried about their kids having firearms/weapons with them all the time. Oh. I pointed at one of Kuroto's light display in his decorated side. I forgot to mention, but we don't have those things called dust running. We have electricity as energy for ours instead. Weiss' eyes widened and grabbed my collar. You don't have dust in your world? She said. I nodded. Nope, no such thing as dusts where we lived. I said. Weiss let go of my collar and went to a corner. But how can that be? John stepped in as he was shaking a bit. Why, you're joking, right? He stuttered. Kuroto and I shook our heads. No way. Yes way, John, I said, patting his shoulder with a look of a frown. But it's still a war in our world. Really bad shit going on over there. Pyrrha spoke up. I don't want to sound rude, but who brought you here? She asked in a polite manner. I jabbed my thumb to Kuroto, whose head looked down and sighed. Don't think he did it on purpose. I guess I died before all of this happened, I said. RWBY and Yang shivered, the latter shook her head. What do you mean? I flinched. I died back then, and I died again, her dash. Yang immediately grabbed my collar. Why are you accepting that? You risked your life to my little sis. Her eyes going crimson red. You're just used to dying now? The trio of my Grims stood up and looked at her, eyes locked with anger and defensive stance. Shaking my head, I held her wrists and grabbed it in order for her to let go. I had a life before this. I yelled at her. She takes a step back from my raised up voice. I was just living with my family. It was all a peaceful day too. I died. I wanted to go home so bad. Arrow, Toro, and Nero stopped their stances and looked down from my sad tone. I wish there was a way to see how's my family going. If only. Kuroto stayed his position, embracing his mistake. I ordered these, I said, taking out the rest of my gas hats. Each revealing Shikaraki Sports, Dangerous Zombie, Proto Mighty Action X, and Dragon Night Hunter Z. But when I used Mighty Action X and Dangerous Zombie at the same time, I felt fear. I spat blood. I didn't know that these could instantly kill me. They were just toys. I pointed at PMAX. How can those kill you? Blake asked, pointing at the gas hats. I've never heard of those before. I sighed. These are called gas hats. Every single one of these carry a disease that no one should use if they don't have the compatibility surgery, the Bugster virus. I grimaced. Bugster virus is a disease that'll infect anyone and kill them if you don't become a Kamen rider like me who can save them. It all started to spread after the Day Zero incident. At the time, Dan Kuroto only wanted to achieve godhood by sacrificing others in order to do so. I looked at Kuroto, who firmly nodded. Several people died by this, and no one could do anything but one man. I closed my eyes. But he failed in the end. It would then get worse by time goes fly. Everyone's eyes widened from hearing the mentioning of people dying. Why? Both Kuroto and I looked at Young, whose aura started bursting. Why did you let them suffer? Yang raised her voice with her gauntlets ready. Ready. Kuroto's face darkened. It's because Blake unsheathed her weapon as well. If it's to stop you from harming humans and faunuses, we'll stop you ourselves. Stop! RWBY stood between everyone and stopping them from unleashing their judgment towards Kuroto. Kuroto stood up, his face revealed to have tears dripping down. Kami, just wanted to my mother another continue. I patted his shoulder and looked at the gangs who were suddenly started to get more down now that this whole drama started. Everyone in his world started to die slowly, but that also brought in bugsters to make things much worse. Bugsters? Run asked. I nodded. Bugsters are born from people who have died from the game disease. They also have the ability to infect others as well. I hate breaking this down, but Kuroto and I are bugsters. I turned away from them and looked at the sky with the open windows blowing winds. You're neither human or a faunus. Blake's eyes now widened, realizing what I mentioned, virus and my death. You don't mean? I nodded, not looking at her. Yeah, when I used the 2 gas hats. I was revived into a bugster. RWBY turned her head to Kuroto. And you did that in order to save him? Kuroto nodded. It all happened back when I was serving my sins, he said. John raised his head. Right, because you spread the disease that started to infect everyone. Kuroto nodded. When the infections have finally been over, I was going to be released from my rehab. The 2 gas hats, Mighty Action X and Dangerous Zombie, started to act completely strange. Thus, I was then sucked into it, he said. I sighed. That's when, somehow perfect timing, these 2 gas hats' diseases transferred to me. Proto Mighty Action X is a proto gas hat. PPP? Nora stutters, trying to say proto correctly. Proto, Nora Rin finished. She owed. Weiss tilted her head, confused arms on her waist. What's the difference? Proto gas hats are too dangerous to use, as they can have harmful side effects to a person after prolonged exposure. Even worse, when a person uses a proto gas hat without going through the surgery, they will spew blood from their mouth and collapse due to its unstable power. Kuroto explained. What Kuroto just said, but in my world. We don't have anything like that. I shook my head. And so, that happened. I turned around to see looks of sympathy and much more understanding. I know everyone here, including Kuroto. To ask me a barrage of questions regarding our separate worlds. But for now, I think we'll be late for right after I said that, the bell perfectly ringed in time. Everyone groaned, especially Kuroto. Class. I sighed in relief and looked at the time on my scroll. The gang starts to leave my room, and RWBY stopped looking at me confused. Hey, aren't you coming? She asked. Not yet, I need to do something while I'm here anyway. I replied. She understood and closed my door silently. I'm going to have to stay for a bit more in order to at least get some more knowledge on my mind about these gas hats work around now. Kuroto looked at me confused. Yes? He asked. I pointed at his silver case. Hey, mind if I could use 2 proto gas hats? I said with a smirk. He smirked as well and grinned deviously. Ho! Are you going to show them how powerful they are? He ruffles my hair and laughs. Yep. He opens the silver case to reveal the different proto gas hats one by one. My grin turned into an evil scientist's laughter. I'll take these 2. I picked up 2 different gas hats from the case and ran off. Thanks, Dad. I yelled a thank you to Kuroto once I ran out the door. His smile softens and looks at a small pink data on his right hand faintly appearing. He clenches it and looks at the curtain. He moves it aside and somehow it was able to hide a pink arcade machine. Let's get to work then. His smirk grows and turns into a serious expression. Anything's possible while I'm still alive. For I am Shindan Kuroto, the Game Master. Sigh, it's been pretty big now. They now know that Kuroto and I are from 2 separate worlds. But they'll eventually ask, what do we both have? which is going to be a great time to talk about. I wonder how he'll react when I mention that there's no such thing as a Gen Corp in my world. If I'm being honest, he'll have a heart attack or something, which I'll gladly take a laugh. Anyway, now that I'm outside, I should totally give Bakuso Bike's form a test drive. Because Glinda's test, if I remember correctly, it's in the Ampu Amphitheater, that's where it is. Hopefully I'll get there in time to tell John a few pointers in case he fights Carden. Not only that, but it's the time where Carden's appearance will now fully happen while I'm here. And I know a damn sure that I will stop him from bullying everyone. Including Velvet. She may be a nice rabbit, but she can fight. That, I remember clearly at the time of the invasion. But she couldn't fight back because she and the others would get in trouble, well, detention really. Growl! What, who's there, Dash? Oh, I looked down to see my belly rumbling a little bit after stopping. Huh, I haven't eaten yet, fuck. I was so focused on telling others to know about Kuroto and me that I forgot to eat something after these last few days. Shit, I'm gonna need to stay in the cafeteria then to refill my hunger. Sure, I'll get weird disgusting looks from others once I devour those delicious steaks. Keep your mind out of the gutter, me. Quickly wiping away my drool. I focused on the distance where I am and my next class. It should be easy to get there on time. I take out one of the proto gas hat I brought with me from the silver case earlier. The design cover of the one in hand has a different one, of course. The mascot of the game is a grayed out dirt bike with a man wearing a spiky helmet. The setting on the background looks to be mountains around the game character. The logo name Bakuso Bike in the front cover. Taking my game driver out from behind, I held it to my waist, which connected together. Game driver. I moved my right arm to the left and pushed the gashets lever down, triggering a sound. The glass glowed with the following words. Bakusu Bike. The same colored hologram board, just like Proto Mighty Action X, appeared behind me. But instead there are different car signs zooming in one by one, with the words game start in the below the game's logo. The gray energy started pulsing all around my surroundings. I slotted Bakuso Bike into the finisher's one, sounds of a bike being heard from the board. I looked at the details of its appearance similar to the original one. The Shadow. Bike Gamer, it's a small black and yellow, racing dirt bike-themed rider machine. The colors that used to be yellow and black, switched with the same one as the Proto Gas Hat. The pink spikes are now actually white spikes. Although if a rider actually used this gas hat, it would have blue eyes. But alas, it doesn't have the eyes it would have. Meaning that I'm safe, and Kiri is not actually this bike form of his. Which would be a weird moment really. Ha ha. Looking at the helmet it somehow carried with, I wear it with the locks on and put the shades on. Remember kids to stay safe from the miles ahead with this helmet. Don't want any critical head injuries too. I smirked and hopped onto the bike. I firmly grabbed hold the front brake and clutch levers in and kick-starting the engine. Bike Gamer starts to go full speed. I paled at the engine starting to go full throttle. Wait, I'm new to THAAAH. We took off with speed. Beacon Academy, Amphitheater, afternoon. Around the place, everyone is gathered around and sitting on their chairs. Mostly in their team positions, however there's a single chair spot left. Which is on to the middle section of the room. Next to Team RWBY and Team JNPR. Ace isn't here. Glinda taps her feet in an impatient manner while a tick mark showed on her head. Class, I would like to ask where is our solo huntsman Ace? Their reactions were pretty much nervous and don't want to face the wrath of her whip. Ruby spoke up because she's a brave little one. Oh. He said he needed to do something important when he got back home. She chuckles nervously. Everyone nodded rapidly, agreeing with her. Glinda sighed and decides to get the class started. Now then, as I have said before. My name's Glinda Goodwitch, you shall call me Professor Goodwitch. She pulled out her wand and waves it to the curtains to reveal the things they need to know. Ooh, they awed at the great semblance of hers. As I've said before, this class will be about combat-wise. So once students like you can grow to battle much better and much wiser so. She said. The scrolls start to show two different profiles with question marks. I will assign two students to face each other and practice one by one. 2 meters below said profiles go green. This meter shows how much aura left you have. The bar's meter slowly went down to yellow. Slowly when you lose aura, this will show just that. After there's no sign of aura, that's when your aura shatters, so be careful and stay alert about your aura. She finished. Students nodded, fully understanding what she just said. John wasn't paying attention when he said, "What?" Now then, usually I would only let an easy demonstration by picking out a 1v1, but before class started, Professor Ashbin asked if I could rearrange something for the solo huntsman here. Which he isn't here yet. Her smile turned into anger. Everyone started sweating when fire showed behind Glinda's expression. Ruby spoke up. "Ace, where are you?" Cupping her hands in order to yell louder. A rev engine loud enough for everyone to hear turned around to see a man wearing a helmet with a strange dirt bike's full-on detail, the black and white. "Aya aya waya." The helmet-wearing man yelled. The dirt bike starts to get closer to crash and Glinda took out her wand. But before she could use her semblance, he crashed into a chair. The dirt bike faded into pixels. The helmet-wearing man flew afar and landed on his back onto the stage. The students all hissed on the bone-crunching sound. She got worried and hurried over to him. "Are you okay?" She asked, worried. "Oh my baya ayak. Are you okay?" a lady asked before me. My eyes keep rolling, dazed at the speed I endured. "Okay. I'm fucking HUR wait. Why do I feel much better now?" Struggling to stand up, my back starts to fix itself and I can now balance myself now. I guess it's dangerous zombies' work of immortality. I shook my head and took out my helmet, which had faded with Bakuso bike into pixels. I look up to see my eyes widen with the closure we're at. Looking at those green eyes of hers, her blonde hair, her glasses, her outfit. Glinda Goodwitch. Quick, gotta pull out tactical maneuver, don't let her notice my pants. I am alright, actually I feel much better than before. I said, taking quick stretches with my back and forth. But how's that posse dash? Glinda got more worried as she wasn't convinced. I waved my hands and smiled. Like I said, I'm fine. With a casual thumbs up and a little grin. She hesitated at first, but she gave in. Very well. She nodded and stood up. It's time to continue on and roll in the team you're facing today. My skin started to pale when she mentioned team. Wait, team. She nodded and brought her scroll in front of me, in order for me to see the message. Miss Goodwitch, I would like to request something that I know you'll find it odd and refuse, but after hearing Ace's story, which is quite interesting to say, which I'll fill you in later after the end of this day. Ashbin, you bastard. I didn't think he'd ask for something like this. I wish for the best of this young man's potential. Since he's a solo huntsman in training, I believe it's better if he fights a team in your class instead of doing a one-on-one. So that we can further see his skills and that mysterious aura surrounding him. Once he shows up, show him this message. Headmaster Ashbin. Oh fuck my non-living existence, I gotta fight a team. You can't be serious. I see. I gulped and started sweating nervously. The scrolls started to move with everyone including JNPR and RWBY's team faces, one by one I see. Slowly going down. My face is on to the left side of the scroll displayed. Looks like it's time to see what team I'm getting my ass whooped by. Once I said that the right side of the team I'll be facing is. My smile turned into an evil one, my chuckle turned into evil laughter. My eyes started to widen and eyebrows narrowed at each face as I see. 4 letters spelled CRDL. The first person rolled in is a man with burnt orange hair that is combed backward with a slight peak at the front and indigo eyes. He wears silver gray armor with gold trims. Carden Winchester. The second person is a man with his head shaved with a light green mohawk on top of it. Ah yes, Russell Thrush. The third now in is another man with light brown hair that is combed to the left, although his eyes are closed. TCH, looking at his face makes me even more pissed off. Dove bronzoing. Now finally the last one, another man on the team has blue eyes and long, combed back, and dark blue hair. Sky Lark. After the scroll announced the fighters, the team smirked and went to get their weapons. I heard this loud roar that I saw a reflection of my own self. My eyes glowed red, looking at their cocky bullying faces. Carden looked at me with an angry look. He glared at John, who turned back, but looked away when seeing his eyes of hatred. You're going to pay for hurting everyone here. You bastard. I clenched my fist and looked at Glinda, who was going to ask me the question Port already asked. Don't need one. She stopped when she looked at my changed expression. I take out the game driver without looking at it, slamming it onto my waist. Automatically connected itself, triggering the sound. Game driver. My mind starts to bring out a memory I hated oh so much to remember. Everything around me started to fade. Ace's childhood, bully. Stop hitting yourself. A child mocked to another after grabbing hold of the poor boy's right arm. P, please stop. He cried, Mommy. The child sighed and looked at the other kids' scared and angry looks on their faces. What? He asked. They all turned away from the beating. The bigger child smirked and cracked his teeth with a powerful right hook. Boring, guess I'll need to find some other kids then. He sighed, leaving the child crying so loud it made others even more mad, but they couldn't step up and ran away. Let's see. He hummed. Hey! A feminine voice can be heard behind him. The bully looked to the sound of the calling and laughed. Really? 3 students are together with looks of determination, fists clenched. Why do you keep bullying us? One of them yelled. The bully shrugged because I just like getting more attention. It's pretty fun, he smirked. And I'll keep doing this, you can't stop me. He laughed at that and left the scene. I hated that part of myself, something that I always wanted to erase. It'll always be there to remind me that I was a huge miserable human being. But after I keep seeing Carden for who he actually is, my anger starts to draw out to its fullest, as if I want to kill him. I want to erase him. John started to tense up once I looked at him. His eyes widened for some reason. He whispered his teammates something and pointed at me. I don't know what he's referring to, but I feel like I know what he's talking about. I hope that's not the case though. Carden's battle armor is a chest plate that sports a bird with its wings outstretched. Underneath the armor, he wears a black shirt with red trimmings and black pants with a red belt tied around his waist. Russell wears a hoodie with the sleeves cut off, and 2 bracers on his arms extending from the wrist to just below the elbow. These bracers have his silver-colored emblem printed on them. Beneath the hoodie, Russell wears a pale green, long-sleeved shirt. He wears a brown strap around his chest holding a spiked spalder to his left shoulder. He also wears dark gray pants. His boots seem to be made of a thick brown material and go up to his knees. Carden and his teammates got their weapons and looked at me with a smirk and disgust. Stepping up into the stage, they look at me with confusion. Hey, what's that? Carden pointed at my gamer driver. Mommy got that little toy for you? He laughed with his teammates who added in the insult. TCH, this freak's not even human, I bet. Able to tame Grims, those monsters who kills everyone in sight. Sky added. My body begins to shake, I can feel my blood boiling. Leave my mother out of this. You don't even know her. I yelled at them. They laughed back and mocked me. Russell made a fake teary weep. Leave my mother, who cares about your mother? All we know is she could be a freak to dash. Glinda whipped Carden's side, who flinched, taking a step back. That's enough. She yelled. Cease your insults and begin. She crossed her arms and looked at my way with a sad frown. Start the match once you're ready, ace. I nodded without looking at her. The shadow suddenly started casting over me. My cold expression and anger now only shone. Everyone shivered and looked scared. Carden's teammates took a step back. Their cowardice can be slightly seen, each body quivering. I let out a deep growl, taking out Proto Mighty Action X and Bakuso Bike at once. Pushing both of the Gasats lever together. Mighty Action X. Bakuso Bike. A mix of Max's remix theme together with an added upbeat rock and roll music started playing in the background. Two same holographic screen appeared behind me. Mighty Action X to the left, and Bakuso Bike to the right. Even the dirt bike appeared next to me. Its gears started to go fast. I slotted both of the Proto Gasats into the Henshin slot without looking, still locking eyes with Carden. Shadow. I pulled the pink lever once again, saw the Bakuso Bike taking in my virus. It pulled itself off the Henshin slot driver. The cover changed into Proto Mighty Action riding on the dirt bike instead of the pink helmet wearing man. Everyone started to get confused even more. It looks like it happened when Emu used this in the Hyper Battle DDD one. Good. I slotted it back into the second slot. Revving into zero grade gear, Henshin. I said with a cold tone. Pulling the pink lever, which opened up two screens in front of me. Gakken. Level up. Mighty Jump. Mighty Kick. Mighty Action. X. The first screen, PMAX, went through me. Now in my level 0 armor, a screech can be heard from Bike Gamer. It starts to fast forward to Carden, who ducked from the sudden strike of the front wheel. Hey, that's cheating! Carden cried out, his teammates nodding. Glinda didn't say anything and neither did I. A gotcha. Bakusu dokusu gekisu busu bakuso bike. Bike Gamer starts to disassemble its gears, only the stool, front and back wheels appeared before me. The rest disappeared into pixels. It hovered behind me, the white spikes helmet behind me, the armor now the black and white before onto my chest. My helmet's hair turned white. The two wheels, the first which is the front armed unit I carry on my right hand. The rear armed unit I hold to my left. 0 grade gear. Proto Action Bike Gamer X. Level 5.0. The timer displayed between us started to count to down. Carden and his teammates took their fighting stances. I remained still. 3, 2, 1. Ding! After the timer starts buzzing, Carden and his team started charging towards me. I simply vanished from their sight. Where is he? Over here. I appeared behind Russell, who moved his daggers in order to block my two wheels, sparking and backing away with his team. It seems I was right that most of these characters may be just bullies, but they're pretty good, which is sad to see. Wasted potential, these kids. I sprint towards Sky, not noticing where I was. He took my kick and slid back from the damage. His aura decreases a bit from the blow. Dove strikes me from behind, but I turned around quick enough due to my reflexes and blocked it with both of my wheels. I headbutt him and took a swing with my right front wheel unit, easily able to get a hit from that. Both Dove's and Sky's aura have the same bar now, but the sword-wielding man slightly turned yellow. He covers his nose and gets pissed. His sword quickly changes into a revolver, immediately shooting bullets towards my way. In slow motion, I simply jumped with an incredible movement over the bullets which shot Carden from behind, making him mad and swinging his mace to me after I landed back to my feet. Russell starts following up with the combo. I had to take both their swings receiving their weapons. I hissed from my new wounds once I got sent back a bit. I ran back and see them going back to their leader, who were staying behind him. Fuck, I didn't get to do much, but I know that my aura has been lowered enough to be on the yellow mark. I turn to my left to see I'm correct. Russell's fine, but I'm only able to land hits from the other three. Sky couldn't block, and he can't coordinate along as well. So I know what I have to do now. I have to keep a diversion and separate them once again. And I think I know how to. jumping up and quickly using my wheels to accelerate through them, pulling off a quick flying back kick at Sky, who had to back away from his team. He knew I was going for him. I can hear sounds of the bullets loading up. He shoots, but instead, I turn to the left while mid-air. Kamen was going to swing his mace to swat me away, but I threw both of my weapons at him. He was now distracted by that. I pulled my right arm to see weapon profiles showing up. I pulled out the Gashikan Sparrow and separated the bow mode into dagger mode. Grabbing hold of the two daggers, Sky used his halberd to block, which it worked. But I smirked and kicked his weapon away from him. He spreads his arms out and tries to get away. I disappeared and reappeared in front of him, pulling off multiple slashes on his body. He fell down and groaned. His aura turned to red. Skylark cannot proceed any further, for he's now in the red aura. Glinda announced. Her announcement stopped us three in the battle. She looks at me with respect and looks at Team CRDL with an angry look that made me shiver. Due to your poor teamwork and coordination, you lost one of your teammate. Would you like to call it off? She asked. Three of them looked back at me with an even more pissed expression. This isn't over yet, Kamen declared. Proceed. With that, Glinda got off the stage, and Sky went back to his seat with a painful groan. After the battle has been announced to continue, Russell attacked me when I wasn't paying attention. He stabbed my right arm with brute force. I growled. I started to bite my teeth in to not yell. I punched his face in order for him to stop. He got sent back and coughed out saliva in my face, although I ignored it next to the rest of the team. Kamen, frustrated, he grabbed Russell's collar. How many times I've been telling you? Get up and let's beat him. He pointed at me. Russell simply nodded and went ahead to me. I used my right knee to aim at his guts. It did, and he got into the floor. And pulled out a quick 360 turn kick on his face that knocked him out quickly. Even though his so-called friends are really good in terms of fighting, he's the worst of being a human. Russell's aura meter fastly decreases to the red section, which stopped us from fighting once again. Russell Thrush cannot battle anymore. Glinda pulled out her wand and sent Russell with Sky, who had to go to the nurse's office, with the slip note. Mr. Winchester, you must be coordinated with your team. Communication is key to this. After Glinda said that, Kamen got angry and whacked his mace onto the ground. Dove started sweating and readied his stance once again. Begin, she said once again. I took a step back, dropping Gashikan Sparrow from my hands. I quickly take out Bakuso Bike Gas Hat from the henshin slot. It did made the noise get their attention. Slamming the gas hat into the finisher holder. Pressing the button once. Gashado. Kaimwaza. Using my legs, I dashed once again from Kamen's sight and appeared behind Dove. I looked away. Rider kick. Dove turned around to see me pressing the button finally. Turning around with my right leg sparking madly, I jumped up and slowly pulled off a scissor kick. Bakusu. Critical strike. He used his arms in front in order to block my rider kick, but explosions appeared from Kamen, who backed away and covered his eyes. Aya. Dove's aura meter quickly shattered. Dove Bronzewing's aura has been shattered. Glinda spoke in shock. He was now lying unconscious. Glinda quickly used her semblance in order to move Dove with the rest of his team all wounded. Kamen, I shall not let you continue fighting. I shall now declare this fight over. Her worry started growing, but Kamen scoffed. Oh, this battle isn't over. I just want to beat this freak and get this over with. I don't care if I don't have my teammates with me. They were holding me back. Now I can finally enjoy fighting him by myself, he said with a cocky smirk. My eyes narrowed. What the hell? These guys have your back. You should trust them more. I've seen how they counted on you for everything. I don't care if you call me a freak. These are your friend Dash. Kamen starts to laugh and shrugs friends. Who needs them, when you can be the strongest man who could simply get the attention he deserves? What? What did you just say? My voice started to sound hollow, clenching my fists, my eyes started to hallucinate around me. Carden's appearance changed into a young kid replaced. His details and appearance are identical to me. Like I've said before, who needs them when you have all the attention? Besides, I'm strong enough to bully the weak. Young me said. The small me fades and Carden is still there. Jody boy isn't fit to be a hero. I know that because he's weak and should be gobbled up by one of those Grims after I pushed him in that launchpad to Emerald Ford --. He stopped when the rest of Team JNPR and RWBY gasped. Doesn't matter anyway. He shrugged casually. Glinda stepped up and eyes narrowed. Carden, I think that's enough. We just talked about your recent activity and now you've gone dash. Oh shut up, Miss Goodwitch, I'm just speaking the truth for everyone here. Carden snarked back. All I want is to beat him and everyone here, that this freak right here is weak. Be a gentleman. Forgive and forget. HNNNNNNGH-ish. Ra-ra-ra-ra-I-A-A. Like hell I'm going to forgive him. Silence ensured. Everyone were shocked at Carden's mock. Pyrrha and the gang started to get angry. John looked away, sad can be all over his face. Now that he's been called out. He's right, I'm no hero. I'm just a nobody. He said that caught others' attention. That's not true, John. You can be a hero. Ruby spoke up and tried her best in cheering him up. Everyone can be a hero if you try. Yeah, except I can't. John yelled back and stood up from his seat. He took off with speed. John! Pyrrha called to him, but he didn't listen. Ren, I want to break his legs. Nora said, trying to go and get her hammer. However, Ren stopped her with a shake of his head. No. He said. Yang's eyes started to turn red, Blake's amber eyes started to harden, Weiss clenches her hand and looked at Ace, who hasn't moved yet. What's going on with Ace? She asked. Ace stood there, his growl starts to grow much louder that everyone heard it. Glinda didn't know what was going to happen next that would end up being newsworthy. His game driver starts to close itself and pulled out both proto-gas hats from the henshin slot. It forced him to revert back into civilian form, but however, his eyes glowed into a deep crimson red that made everyone scared. Ruby pointed at him. Hey, John mentioned Ace's eyes glowed red a minute ago. She said. Blake nodded. Yeah, I saw it too. But I thought it was just me. She said. The Bakuso Bike gas hat went back into the holder, however, a different gas hat started floating from behind and appeared in Ace's face. His eyes start to widen and shaky breaths can be seen from the cold. You'll pay. His growl starts to intensify. The gas hat floating has a golden color with a dragon head on the end, with red eyes and shows sharp fangs. The cover itself has a dragon that's supposed to be the mascot of the game. The title of the game is called Dragon Knight Hunter Z. It pushed its own lever, triggering a new sound and a new screen behind Ace. Drago. Knight. Hunter. Z. A small black, silver, pink, and yellow dragon-themed robot with a sword and a railgun for arms appeared before Ace. From the screen game it's revealed the logo of Dragon Knight Hunter, but the Z has a rainbow crystal look. The area around is on fire due to the dragon breathing against warriors who caught it. Slotting itself into the second slot, Ace slotted PMAX back into the first. Raya Ia. Grade 0 to 5, Henshin. He yelled and pulled the pink lever, the dragon roared and split itself, the legs on and the two sword and guns near Ace's arms. Gakken. Level up. Mighty jump. Mighty kick. Mighty Action. X. The screen went through him immediately. The Hunter gamer pieces started to connect with Ace once the second screen went through as well. A gotcha. Dodo Drago. Nanaknight. DRA dash. DRA dash. Drago Night Hunter. Z. The sword went to his right, the gun went to his left. The head part on his head, the armor having wings. It turned quiet. Carden starts to regret his decision. Everyone's eyes were all on Ace now, his red helmet eyes glowed. Blue sparks surrounding him, he grunts from the feeling. The wild power starts making him go insane. He starts shooting everywhere, causing short explosions. Glinda took her wand, but nothing happened. She felt something off. Why can't I use my... Ace charges at Carden, who was surprised at the speed. The latter tries to swing his mace. But it cracked once Ace used the sword part with a swift strike. He starts using the gunshots from the green gun part on his left, causing Carden to spit out blood, his aura reaching into yellow that's going close to red. Carden starts crawling away, but Ace let out a big stomp on his back. Hey, Ace, I know I may have said some things, but we can water the bridge, right? Right. The only answer he received was his throat being grabbed and a powerful punch. He was sent off to the wall and fell down. Stop! RWBY cried out. The gang, although John isn't here, start running into the stage to confront Ace. Glinda takes out her scroll and types something down. Ace, calm down, she said. He doesn't listen and starts stepping in closer. Yang punches her gauntlets out and takes her fighting stance. I'm sorry, RWBY, but I don't think words alone will reach him, she said. Everyone other than RWBY all agreed and took off to face Ace. RWBY couldn't help but watch, closing her eyes. Don't! Weiss switched her dust usage to ice, stabbing it onto the ground, which Ice starts to follow to Ace, trapped. He easily breaks through the ice trapping him. Weiss hops off and focuses on her GLY no. What's happening now? Yang jumped up and aimed for an uppercut, but she got knocked away from a strong backhand of Ace's right arm. Blake takes out her black ribbons to catch Ace's right arm, who then growls and aims his gun at her while shooting. Para jumps in and holds her shield to protect her from the bullets. The cat Faunus pulls him to Nora, who starts to get impatient and switches hammer mode into a grenade launcher and shoots out pink grenades. Ace's wings glow. He flies up and looks at the pink mists clouding the area. He roars, causing flames to start spewing from his helmet. Woohoo! Nora cheered, switching back her grenade launcher, switching back to hammer. She slams it down and soars into the air. Ace saw her grabbing her hammer and making a spin to his head. Feeling the mighty blow from the hammer, he falls down from the ground. Once crash landing down, he struggles to keep up and look at the teams before him. His roar starts blowing. Nora couldn't handle the waves and gets sent back away. Yang gets back up and looks mad. She tries to use her semblance, but nothing happened. Wait, what? She throws air punches and looks at her hands. Yang, what's wrong? RWBY asked, helping her balance. The blonde bombshell looked at RWBY and eyes down. I can't use my semblance. Glinda, who stood there, analyzed the problem of what's been going on. She steps up and focuses her aura once more. Miss Xiaolong is correct. Something's preventing us from using our semblances. She points to Ace, who's currently battling Ren. He's the cause of it. Rah! Ace blocked the small bullets from Ren's weapon and charges to him. Ren backflips away from him and focuses his aura to fight close combat. Ace! Listen to everyone and remember who you are, he said. Sadly, it doesn't work. Not listening to a thing, Ace swings his tail, which whacked Ren out of nowhere. Run! Nora called out. RWBY looked scared and shook her head, taking out her crescent rose and charged in. RWBY, no! Yang reached her arm to her, but she couldn't. Ace notices and uses both his arms up in defense. The sharp blade closes on his head. He swings them away. RWBY backs up, switching her weapon to gun mode and aims again. Quickly loading up fire dusts in and fires. He runs forward, ignoring the fire dust and closes in. Ruby tried to block it with her scythe, but it gets out of her hand immediately, wrapping the young huntress with his tail. Ace's crimson eyes glowed, instantly pulling out his DKHZ gas hat out, slotting it into the finisher slot. Yang's eyes shot up and tear running from her face. RWBY. Gashado. Kaimwaza. Ace's eyes glowed once more, his two weapons started to spark together. No! She yelled out in fear, she smashes the ground with her fist. Ruby tries to get out of his grasp, but she couldn't manage to do so. Ace, please. She starts to cry, her tears drop on Ace's helmet. He stopped when he was close to pushing the final button. Before the battle. Middle school, the time when I was just like Carden, his face and the way he talks always will remind me that I was like that before. I feel like destroying everything my way. My heart keeps beating whenever I feel that adrenaline. It's something I try to resist. But I finally started letting them out because I just wanted to forget the past. It's because of my past that keeps reminding me of everything back then. Anger, a negative emotion. Something I've held dear. Betrayal, cold, I'm alone, I'm glad I can finally let them all out. That calling, Dragon Knight Hunter Z. It called me to just go wild. And so I did. I don't know what's going on, but I don't care one single bit. Now I can finally forget my past by accepting this battle. Carden deserves to get killed. I'm not letting him scot-free right here and now. The rest of the gang steps in front of me, they called out to me. Get out my way. I yelled to them deep inside. My roar starts echoing in my head, I agree with you. They're getting in the way anyway. After the quick fight around me, they all worked together to fight me. Surrounding me as if they're going to win this battle. TCH, I said stay away. The dragon roared. Yes, let's kill them all. Ray-a-a-a-waya. The battle continued on. I can see myself taking out the gas hat while my tail holds Ruby tight. No. No. A voice. I turned around to see Yang's tears falling off her face. I look back at Ruby, who struggles to be free from my tail, weaponless. Ace, please, she whimpered. Tears started falling down from her as well. But my vision starts showing the same young boy in his hallucination. It looks like they're in a park area, it being peaceful, but yet he's mocking every kid there while hitting others. Middle school, 8 years ago. When the kid turned around, he got cut off with a fist landing on his right cheek, he fell down. You think it's fun to attack others? Just for your selfish reason? Another yelled and landed another fist to the bully's stomach. No more. We're fighting back. The black empty voice starts to flash a bit, photos or rather tears from different kids appeared one by one. What am I doing? The empty void starts to change timeline, the morning turning into the afternoon. I see the now beaten up bully crying after being beaten. I just wanted people to notice me. He sniffed. A teacher in the background saw the scene inside, he checked his reports on the bully's actions and decided it's better to talk to him now. The boy felt a hand on his right shoulder to see a teacher who sighed and looked at the boy. Hey kid, if you kept on going with this meaningless desire, you won't be able to come back to school. Look, if you really want people to notice you, or rather see you as who you are, you have to change. To become a nice person, like a gentleman, for example. He chuckled. The boy hiccuped and nodded. Really? He asked. The same teacher nodded back and messed the boy's hair. Sure am, now you'll likely get out of school suspension, but I hope when you come back, you're going to change. He said to him with a smile. I will. The bully's face changed into a smile, he huffed in pride. I'll make sure to be a much better person. He said to the teacher who just chuckled. That's what I like to hear, kid. Yesterday. A different scene changed into the day before this class. Because if you consume your anger, then you'll just turn up as him as well. I pointed at him and myself. You're not like him, you're quite forgiving, nice, and I respect that completely too, I assured him with the truth. John sat back down once more and smiled. Hey John? I said. Yeah? He replied back. Let me tell you a story about how a boy who... John looks at me with a confused expression. Who was just like Cardan as well. Raising one of his eyes widened to realize what I mean by that. Why, you were just like CA-? Yeah, I was a bully. I clenched my fist deep, taking a deep breath before I continue. And I hated it so much for being one. But why did you do it? He asked. Have you ever wanted to look cool, not giving a single shit about anyone? I questioned one more. He shook his head. No. I was the one who got jealous because... The atmosphere turned silent. Others got more attention than me. Yeah, I know it sounds like I'm a huge asshole now. I look away as I scoffed. Well, things I did it to get attention from others. I hit the cushion, causing Nero and Arrow to flinch. I felt weak too, so I just bullied the weaker ones than me. Tears running down from my eyes. That's why Cardan reminds me of me. I clenched my fist. I don't want to sound, well, a jerk, but... You didn't have any friends at the time, huh? He asked. Yeah, that's true. I answered. But now you're not him anymore. John simply pat my back softly. Even though we've only met, I know for one thing that you're different than him. Huh? I raised my head. You said he reminds you of yourself, right? He asked. I nodded. So that means you changed into becoming a much better person than him. John pointed at the sky with a smile. You said it yourself, we're all friends here. He took a heroic pose, trying to lift up the atmosphere. I smiled at that. Thanks, man. It's what brothers are FO-. Oh, so now you admit it. I pointed at him with a smirk. John noticed what he just said and covered his mouth. Well, you keep saying brother so. He shrugged. Oh, right. I sheepishly laughed. Ha! I let my stupid grudge take me over. My inner rage, my blood boiled, all because of my past just by looking at the bastard. Guess I'm no better than Cardan. I'm so sorry. Instead of taking out my anger and almost killing him, I should have talked with my new friends. Friends who I just made today. It's all too sudden, but I can trust them. Ruby, John, and everyone else. I'm so sorry. I was supposed to be the big brother here and take care of you all. But I'm still just a kid who hasn't accepted his mistake. The dragon looked at me, eyes widened. He blew fire out of his nose to me. I stood there embracing the fire. I coughed. I deserve that. I said to Hunter Gamer, who nodded. So? I guess instead of letting my own hatred blind me, I should just embrace it by turning it into a weapon and go buck wild on my foes? He nodded once more. Thank you. I bowed in respect. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be able to move on now. The empty void with fire all around starts to fade. My smile opened, a bright flash brought me out to reality. I woke up to see my tail getting hold of Ruby. I looked to my surroundings, watching everything scorched like fire was recently put out. A lot of students are gone. I see Yang running towards me, but she stopped when I turned. Hey Ace, are you actually back? She asked. I turn to Ruby, who looks at me with eyes open and a smile. At that, everyone around me starts to smile and stop their fighting stances. I let my tail stop holding Ruby inside, taking out both of the gas hats from the henshin slot, closing the pink lever back with all my strength. Gashin. I transformed back into my casual clothes. I smiled with a nod. But my body starts to drain, falling down from this long battle. I struggle to keep my eyes open any further. But alas, everyone started to run to me, asking if I'm okay. Stay in there. Damn it, I don't deserve all of you. Thanks, everyone. I said my last words before drifting off to sleep, their eyebrows raised and a chuckle can be heard. My eyes finally gave up, closing itself by force. In the end, I smiled. This battle has been a travesty, many students were injured. But however, it left a huge impression on Ace. Everyone who was a witness reported it to RWBY, who was actually quite shocked. He thought to himself as to how this happened. He found his answer. Well, really, it was the gang who have told him what they saw and heard. He has no choice but to settle this matter with him. In order for Ace to stay, there's going to have to be a meeting settled here in Beacon. As for Carden's situation with him and his teammates, the rest never heard of his smug speech. And he's glad they didn't, because he's going to find something that can be useful, or rather take hold of. He'll find something to make John and Ace suffer. His Grims have all cried for Ace, which led people in the other rooms find it quite annoying. They've been trying to fight them, or hell, get this over with. But Dan Kuroto's appearance has been spotted as well due to the fight with the students who kept calling Ace a monster. John has been avoiding everybody and has been trying to adjust his training, but after he found out that Ace is asleep and heard of the rampage, he knew he should have done something, but he hates himself even further now for even thinking about it. The rumors with the two writers have skyrocketed outside of Vale, especially about Ace, leaving a target for them to watch out for now in Remnant. A man groaned. He stood up and looked at the strange eye-glowing thing. This is a weird product to see, he mumbled. The eye switched its pupil to see the same man who was looking at it carefully and interested to find out more. The man looks to be in his 40s, his appearance is that of a grey coat with a purple tie, his brown-haired bold style. His smile widens when the strange globe revealed another Mano, a product that has somehow able to defy fate. He starts twiddling around a gas hat in his hand. The gas hat on his hand, the color of it, is a mix of black and green. The design cover itself have a mascot character in the front, or rather, characters, each having a color of their own in the outlines. The title, Kamen Rider Chronicles. It seems that fate led me to continue to do whatever I enjoy doing. He laughs to himself. Wonderful. I have always believed in fate, it's such a nice reward. He turns around to inspect the product closer. His face changes into disgust. Dangerous zombie, I didn't think you'd be here as well. His smile sends a shiver to anyone around him. Doesn't matter, if you're only here then I only need to finish you off. You were a product I was planning on discontinuing anyway. His ears open when hearing a growl, but from where? His question has been answered when a Grim popped out of nowhere. Oh! I've never seen something like this before. He continues to twirl around his gas hat and sighs. Obey, he said to the Grim. The Grim's response was only a howl to gather other of its kind. He shrugged and decided to pull out something from him, connecting a driver to his waist, triggering a sound. It's time for judgment, he said. Bugle driver. Zwei. Gakken. The belt on him looks like a gamepad/shooter/chainsaw gauntlet. It has two buttons. One A button, and the other a B button. The colors are a bluish green and white look. He presses the gashet's green lever, then lets it go. Kamen Rider Chronicles. The gas hat itself started to float and started hovering over him, pressing the A button on the bugle driver. The music starts to play in a slow but yet intense beat. The gas hat slots into a supposed henshin holder. Gashado. Henshin. He smiles and pushes the red slider from the slot. Bugle up. Ten was Kamen Rider, wow. Kazami Chronicle. I am a Kaso Tokiwa. Kiwo Moreri. Wow. A clock appears before him. Two green holographic screens appeared, one being the top and the other the bottom, slowly rising up and converting the man into his rider form. The two screens closed him up and transform into Kamen Rider Chronicle. His helmet resembles that of Mighty Action X, however, he has exactly 5 green horns on it. His suit is green and black along with white lines running down. He has green circuits going across the suit. Having a trench coat from his waist. Having big shoulder guards with 2 horns on them. Green hair and green eyes as well. I am the administrator of Kamen Rider Chronicles. You little weak creatures can't harm me. Because I rule the world. He laughs at the Grims, who stepped back a bit. He opens his arms up and looking around. My name is Masamune Dan, the game ruler. He stops what he's doing and takes out his bugle driver, then attaching it onto his arm. Moving it onto the chainsaw mode. The Grims all huddled together, each moving in with a quick swipe. He tucked and quickly sends out a rough stab to one. It being sawed off is a disgusting sight. For Beowulfs howled and threw themselves into him, he ticked and puts his bugle driver back onto his belt. His trench coat twirls. I didn't allow for additional players in here. He scoffed. He raises his 2 hands and somehow, 2 weaponries of a sword and shield formed and he took hold of them. The sword looks like a dagger of sorts, its color is completely different than the green with a black look. It looks slightly tinted, with it being completely ash. It has a golden aura though on the inside. The shield however has a claw, the same thing as the dagger but with white circles separate but come down together. It being gold and black. He raises his claw shield and stabs one in their non-existent heart. He swings his sword through its head and kicks it off. Others began to get scared. However, some still resist their fears and swing their claws. He blocks them with his shield and swings their heads as well. Pushing aside, he throws his shield to another. It is stuck with it. He jumps and slashes its right arm midway, each fading away from the slice and dice. He looks around to see more gathering around. Looks like I'll have to discontinue everything here. He presses both of the 2 buttons at the same time. Pause. A loud boom makes the sound, everything stopped moving. However, everything looked completely monochrome. But his colors are still up. He hums with his 1 finger on his chin. These things, they have a mind of their own. Still, I would love to get my answers. If I have to get my hands dirty, then so be it. He presses the B button to start his finisher. Kaimwaza. His right leg starts to energize, a clock appeared above him. The tick starts to synchronize his quick clockwise reverse roundhouse kick. Doing so caused many explosions to the Grims. He sighed and pressed both buttons at the same time, letting time resume. Reset. The Grims all howled, but in a cry sound, exploding each one by one. The rest backed up in fear. He laughs and sets off to the remaining creatures. Stop. A deep voice called his attention. He turned around and stopped what he was going to do. The lady's look is quite odd. Her skin is a deathly pallor, covered with deep red and purple veins that run up her arms and face. The sclerae of her eyes are jet black and her irises glow red, even brighter when she is agitated. She has a black diamond-shaped marking in the center of her forehead. She wears a very long black robe with red designs resembling eyes. She also wears a ring resembling an insect on her right index finger. She has white hair formed into a bun with 6 offshoots from which ornaments are suspended. Oh! You cannot stop what the game god does. He mocked. Her eyes narrowed. I just defied my own fate. I simply can't let these little things get in my way. He said. She starts to get angry but doesn't give in. She raises her hand to the Grims to stop, which they obeyed. There, I know you want answers. And I shall provide them, she said. He shrugged and looked at her. You're different, he said, looking at her weird appearance. I'm guessing you're this world's goddess? He asked. She kept her blank, expressionless face. I'm here to have a deal with you, she said. One of which raised Masamune's eyebrow a bit. A deal, he repeated. She raises her hand to the eye-glowing orb and shows it in front of him. You know who this is, right? She asked once more. The orb's color changed to what it's looking, the same thing Masamune saw when he appeared. He smiled. Why, that's dangerous zombie, a difficult product I wish to discontinue. She said nothing but look at his writer form. Why don't you reveal yourself? She snapped her fingers, the room turned bright. The room itself is red with chairs, a long table with red curtains. It's quite empty, it really is. I suppose introductions are in order. He obliged much to his disgust. He takes out his gas hat by pressing a simple button. Gachin. He converts back into his civilian form and puts his driver and gas hat away. My name is Masamune Dan, a god who achieved power. He smirked and sat down on the last end of the table. She sits down and looks into his eyes. She slowly nods, but you've already lost that power, she said. Masamune's smile turns into a frown and then to an angry look on his face. He slams the table. Tell me about your deal already, he yelled. She simply stood there, not flinching from the pathetic tone of his. My name is Salem, I don't obey, I order. Grims are summoned from behind who are snarling at Masamune. I would simply like to hear what you have to say. What can he do? He hummed. He's a bugster, he said. She gets intrigued, so he has to add his 2 cents. I'm likely going to guess this young man isn't my failure of a son. Having the powers of a bugster, but I know for one thing is that if he used the dangerous zombie, then he should already be dead. That's how I know he isn't human like me, he finished. A bugster. Oh, do tell. She gestured him to explain more. The screen fades away, and evil laughter can be heard from Masamune's chilling voice. Beacon Academy, nurse office, afternoon. Ow! I hissed, covering my head. I open my eyes to see a hospital bed near me, one that is empty though. I groan and check around. Medicines and a very white room, might I add. Finding out who hit me is none other than Kuroto. Kuroto? What happened? I asked him. He sighed and patted my head. You were pretty out cold when you used level 5, he said. My eyes widened. I started to get off the bed, but I fell down. Is everyone alright? I asked him while struggling with my balance. Yeah, everyone's quite worried about you. I thought that you being the game master's son, you should know that you're immortal, he joked. To which I huffed. He nodded. There were some pretty bad injuries with the man's name, Carden Winchester. I stood up and shook his collar and looked at him with a grimace look coming from my face. He's fine, Kuroto said. I sighed in relief and looked at my hospital gown. How long have I been sleeping for? I asked, whiling taking quick stretch routines. He hummed. The classes have been delayed due to the fight, so I'd like to say a few hours. A few hours? Oh no. I need to eat. Kuroto, I need to go to the lunch hall. I haven't eaten, and if I don't. He understood and grabbed hold of my right shoulder. Let's go, he said. They're also at lunch too. So you won't have to sit down with no one. He snickered. I rolled my eyes and groaned. Hey Kuroto, do you have a bag with you? I asked him. He seems very confused about why I would ask that. It's just that, I figured that if someone gets injured I should carry around medicine or anything that can help them feel much better. It's what my mom always said, when you see someone hurt, you should assure them that everything's fine. If they try to resist, make some sort of joke or bring a bright smile that would stop their worrying, I said with a soft smile on my face. Kuroto disappeared and quickly reappeared before me with a bag and stuff used for easing things. Here. He handed me the med kit. Oh, thanks, Dad. I thanked him. He smiled at that. We both walked away from the nurse's office, although the nurse herself wasn't quite happy with that. He also forgot to wear my clothes along too. Whoops. Beacon Academy, dining hall. Around the dining hall is just silence, people murmuring around with the whole fight incident. Others saying it's because he's a monster, some agreeing that maybe it was for Carden's own good.
However, for Team JNPR and RWBY, it's just Nora telling her dream.
So, there we were. She said in a scary voice.
In the middle of the night.
It was day.
Rhyme corrected.
We were surrounded by Ursas.
Ruby and Pyrrha look at John, who was playing around with his food.
They were Beowulfs, Rhyme corrected once again.
Dozens of them.
Nora hops off her seat.
2 of them.
He said.
But they were no match. In the end, Ren and I took them down.
Making Yang awe at this adventure of Nora's. And made a boatload of lean selling Ursa skin rugs.
She sat back down.
Ren sighed. She's been having this reoccurring dream for nearly a month now. Ruby looked around and saw Ace walking, well, slowly walking.
Oh, Ace over here.
She waved at him, gesturing to sit with her and the rest. He started acting all nervous, but alas, he nodded and grabbed a pile of meat to his tray. Ruby's jaw hit the table. Everyone didn't know what she was so shocked about, but once they saw Ace smiling nervously and his tray.
Whoa! Yang awed at the tower of steaks and all kinds of meat before her.
Ace scratched the back of his head.
I might have a big appetite from that,
he said, putting his tray onto the table with the gang, and looked away. Listen guys, I'm sorry for what I've done, he said.
PFT, water under the bridge, am I right guys?
Ruby waved it off. They all slowly nodded.
Right.
He started to grow worried. I know everyone's still probably scared of my level 5 form.
Level 5?
Blake asked. I thought you said grade 0 to 5?
She said.
Ace shrugged. Well, it's actually called level. Not grade. I say grade because it's sort of like my Henshin catchphrase, he said.
You have a catchphrase for that?
Weiss asked.
He smirked. Meishem, it's what every writers say before the words Henshin follow. What does Henshin mean anyway? Yang asked as well.
Henshin basically means transform where I'm from,
he answered. Where are you from? I know you're from another W dash.
Ruby couldn't finish what she said before Ace covered her mouth to be quiet.
Oh, sorry. She chuckled nervously. He waved it off and started eating the meat before the gang. Everyone eshed when he was eating it like a zombie, licking and roughly taking bites out of it. The young writer watches everyone laugh. Sorry, can't help it.
His cheeks started to turn red a bit there. He coughs and finishes his meal with a glass of water.
Anyway, I hope everyone here forgives me for what I've done.
He stood up and bowed. Each flinched from his sudden change. Pyrrha shook her head. It's alright, you stood up for everyone against Carden.
Right? She said. He nodded once again. Yeah, he said, still unsure what to say. Then it's all forgiven. She smiled. He smiled back as well. Thanks, Pyrrha. But yeah, I have complete control with that form. But I won't use it, it'll only be for emergency only. They all sighed in relief. He chuckled a bit. Quickly the atmosphere turned quiet. He wondered over a second and thought, why not ask? So, what did I miss? Anything new coming?
Weiss nodded and looked ready to be the smartass she is.
Well, if you must know.
In our world, I mean here.
In the next few months, a festival is coming.
And that's the Vital Festival, she said in excitement.
Everyone nodded. Yang slammed her fists together with a smirk. Ruby starts tapping her feet, trying to contain her excitement. Ace nodded and a question mark appeared on his head. What's that?
They all slapped their foreheads, forgetting that he's from another world.
Right, the Vital Festival is a place for all students from other kingdoms to be here in Vale to battle it out. Weiss added. Teams will be picked to represent Vale in the combat tournament.
His smile changed into a pale face. Oh, cool. He coughed. What's wrong? Para asked. He shook his head rapidly. Nah, it's nothing to worry about. His frown changed back into his usual smile. Ace turned his head to see John, who's still playing with his food. Hey John, you alright? He asked. John, looking quite dazed, but shook his head. Oh yeah, why? He replied back with a question. Ruby and Para looked at each other and nodded. Ruby spoke first. It's just that you seem a little, not okay. Everyone agreed. Guys, I'm fine, seriously, look. He tried to pretend he's alright with a fake smile. He nervously laughs at that too. Ow. Ow. That hurts. Ace immediately looked behind him to see a girl getting mocked, her rabbit ears being pulled in. John notices and clenches his fist. Team CRDL is currently bullying a faunus rabbit, who Ace knew only by her info. She has long, brown hair and brown eyes. She also has a pair of long, brown rabbit ears, making her easily identifiable as a faunus. The rabbit wearing the Beacon Academy uniform, a white, form-fitting top, with a collar lined with black and a pink ribbon tied neatly below. She also appears wearing a dark brown, long-sleeved jacket that comes down around her chest over the shirt. Told you it was real. Carden laughed. Russell shook his head. What a freak! They kept laughing and pointing at her. Sky used his fingers as rabbit ears, hopping as a mockery. Ace's eyes glowed into a deep red, but he hasn't growled, which made John sigh in relief. His hair's color turned a slight white. He gets up and leaves the gang themselves. Wait Ace, what are you going to do? John asked while hiding himself. Ace doesn't answer, and simply walks in to intervene. It did, however, cause Carden sweating bullets when he saw him with his crimson eyes showing. I accepted my past, and I gotta stand up for her. Back in the episode, nobody stood up for her. And I sure hell will. I've accepted everything about my anger, which I'll use it to go buck wild. The dragon's roar echoed into my mind, agreeing my resolve apparently. Thanks, I'll never forget your lesson. After taking a few steps, I see Carden sweat a bit when I locked eyes with him. His team starts to sweat as well when they saw me. I grabbed his wrists with a tight hold. He feels the pain already. Hey Ace, he said in a scared tone. Hey Carden. I answered back. What do you think you're doing? He gulped. Oh, I was just saying hello in the traditional wah dash. He starts to go on one knee when I squeezed his hand tighter. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He cried out. I looked at his team and tilted my head. Wanna go? They shook their heads as a no rapidly. Good. Satisfied that they won't start fighting back. Squeezing his hold and making him let go of her. Now, if I see you bullying anyone ever again. My voice started to go deep once I growled a bit. I'll make sure your life's a living hell. I warned him and let go of his arm. If I remember one thing is that, you can fight back. But just don't actually beat him up like last time. I know this because I sure the hell am and will be comforting Velvet while I'm here. I see the rabbit faunus herself, Velvet Scarlatina, giving me a thank you but ran away. I nodded. Sigh. Damn, guess she ran away because she felt embarrassed and weak. Now most likely, she's going to the main avenue in order to calm down. Get him. I turn around to see a right hook towards my face. I grabbed the hand before me, which I see Carden looked surprised. Now what did I say? I smirked. He shook his head and tried to wave his hand, gesturing he was sorry. I pulled his right arm away from me. I followed it up with a two-hit kick, hitting his chin and slamming it back down into the ground. His team started to realize what I did and pulled their dukes as well. Sigh, I guess the hard way it is. I shrugged and punched my fists together with a grin. Let's do this. I taunted. They started running towards me. Russell appeared before me with a chop. I ducked and flipped over with a kick on his face. He gets sent down into a table. Sky starts to charge into me with a spear. I hold him once he comes close. I held his arms and used my right knee to get a hit. He spits out saliva due to the impact. Dove comes with a punch ready behind my spine. I grabbed Sky and tossed him to Dove. He saw it coming, which made him and Sky get down with a groan. I opened the doors and went to search for Velvet. Beacon Academy, Main Avenue. Looking around the place, the nice and soft grass. The sun warming down upon us. Well, it's half of it really. Guess it was easy, since I did fight them back in the battle test John should have gotten. I just messed up. However, I don't think it'll be the same with John being manipulated. Because now that I'm here and really gave Carden's team a major beating. Well shit, then again, if it wasn't for Hunter Gamer, I wouldn't have changed at all. I slowly take my steps and hear a voice. Who's there? Ah, it must be Velvet. I'm the guy back from the dining hall. The one who stopped Carden from harassing you any further. I answered back. I hear footsteps behind me to see Velvet relieved. I check my bag to see medicine's still here. Oh, mind if I treat your ears? I looked at her rabbit ears and saw small bruises. I knew it was that serious. Oh well, I'll make sure she'll sit with us for a while till her teammates come out. That's a good question. Where the hell are they? I reassured her with a smile. Don't worry, I just want to help out. She nodded and sat down on the grass. Sitting down in front of her, I quickly apply alcohol with a cotton cloth. Rubbing her ears, she hissed and fidgeted. I held her hand to calm her down. She took a deep breath. I look at her ears and see it's healing better than I expected. Guess that's the work of aura, I guess. There you go, your ears should be healed soon. All you have to do is not touch the small casts for half an hour and it'll be a-okay. I chuckled, letting go of her hand and putting the things back into my bag, laying down on the grass to feel the nice soft breeze. She looked away as she saw the little wraps. Thank you. My smile grew even wider looking at her up close. It's fine. I waved it off. Simply enjoying the view. Velvet stutters and gets confused. Oh, if you want. I can be your company till your team comes back, I said to her. She nodded and stayed there for a little while. What's your name? She asked. My name's Ace Valiant. I answered. Yeah, I get it's not a color name. My family just forgot about it. I lied with a joke. She giggles. My name's Velvet Scarlatina. You know, I never thought I'd get to meet someone else who's... She said. Nice to the faunus? I finished. She nodded. It's alright, I don't care if you're a faunus or not. You're just someone who wants to live the best of her life. I said, much to her shock. Sometimes it's hard in life when people discriminate your people. But there are others like me who care about your well-being. She twiddled her fingers and begins to stutter. Say, why did you stand up for me? Carden's been bullying everyone. I didn't know at first. But I knew what I should do. He bullied one of my friends, and kept calling me a freak too. Oh, right. She realized who I am but still didn't get away from me. I didn't know that was you. She laughs nervously. I shrugged. It's alright, I don't mind being called a freak. She covers her mouth. But they're talking a lot of things about you. She grabs my collar, which got me surprised. How do you ignore them and live so freely? Even though I can hear them, my grims even feel their negative emotion as well. All I care about is my friends and their family. I answered. She smiled when I mentioned friends. I guess you're a new encounter in my life. As a friend. She quickly starts shaking. If that's alright with you. I started sweating and stood up, red started to rise on my face. Oh, I don't mind that honestly. Wanna sit with me and my friends? She shook her head and nodded. I'd like that. See cool, let's go. She and I got up and looked at the sun now setting. Wow. Wow, I guess time sure flies, huh? I said out loud. Yeah. After introducing Velvet to our RWBY and the rest when we came back, they all said their hellos. I'm glad they're not like that, although when Yang mentioned must be hard being a faunus. I just quickly looked at Blake. Who didn't see that I stared at her? Which is a good thing, mind you. Plus the meats here are still delicious as ever. Although that'll be a problem if I do a steak out or something. Gonna have to get a job or something just to get lean for food. Oh right, and clothes. Good news is that Carden and his team have been knocked out. The bad news is that John is still in his emo phase for using transcripts. I know that because once Carden woke up and saw John leave. He smiled, although I knocked him out once more with a big stomp of my foot. Everyone started to raise a brow and get nervous once I did that. I just told them it was an instinct. They believed me, Blake however, I assume no. Anyways, I've been pretty tired, but I guess class doesn't start till a few more minutes since my level 5 form really had to get Ashbin to take care of the situation. I know for one thing is that I'll need to be in a meeting since things like that happening can't be pushed away. Now, remember my strategy to handle Dr. RWBY's lectures? My answer to that is coffee. If you can't keep up with energy drinks, get a really high sugar coffee that'll probably make you crazy. But I theorize that I'll be able to catch up with his speed. However, the costs are my sleep, stomach, and more meat will be the exchange, joy. Ring ring ring. Ah, the bell rang. Guess it's time to face the fastest talker alive. God, I'm going to hate myself in the morning after this. Beacon Academy, Dr. RWBY's class. In the classroom of Dr. RWBY, everyone started to take seats next to each other if they know one another. Blake sat with Para, but John decided to sit alone for some reason. As for me, I quickly go down the steps and see Velvet just ready to listen to the lecture. Carden tried to trip me when I was quickly going down, so I kicked his leg really hard. He didn't yell or cry for help, although Velvet heard it due to her enhanced hearing trait. She winced at the sounds of bones cracking. Putting my stuff next to her, I smiled and she did as well. Mind if I sit here? I asked. She nodded as sure. I sat down next to her and GAH. Ah, you must be the solo huntsman Professor Ashbin mentioned. The man before me said. He sips his coffee while chugging actually. Allow me to introduce myself, class. My name is Dr. RWBY. His appearance is rather a young man, with messy green hair. He has brown eyes, his attire is disheveled, his white shirt partially tucked into his dark green pants and its collar raised, showing a slack yellow tie, along with mismatched brown and black shoes. He also has round glasses that appear to be opaque. Oh boy, I'm going to enjoy hearing no ends of this guy. In this class, we're going to learn and study more about the history of Remnant. He said. Ah, if I remember correctly. I did say it would be pretty fun to see the comparisons with Remnant's war history and Back in Earth. Probably about humans and faunus against each other. We huntsmen and huntresses must learn everything we can from Remnant, so maybe one day, we can successfully find new and amazing discoveries around. He chugs more of his coffee. And that's why we're here. It's time we take haste and focus on our new subject for today. He scrambles around his table and passes out worksheets. Remember to take notes as well. You'll have to keep up. He advised everyone. I knew what he meant by that. Taking out my notebook labeled history. I write down whatever's going to be a long one. 30 minutes later. Jesus fuck, he's fast. If it wasn't for that sugar coffee I drank before, then I would have definitely failed in this class. Well, it doesn't really matter, but I gotta get some good grades at least. Alright, I learned that regarding the whole Faunus War, most of the politics resemble quite a bit Back on Earth.
Now, while this must feel like ancient history to many of you, it is imperative to remember these are relatively recent events. He zooms around the room. Why the repercussions of the uprising can still be seen to this day. Can confirm that the White Fang have been doing the whole killings, or hell, I don't know what they actually do. Because they did do some robbery, most likely assassinations. I didn't want to be a part of the whole writer is in a new world and he knows it club. But I'll have to do something about it. Now, have any among you have been subjugated or discriminated against because of your faunus heritage? He asks the class. One student raised his hand. I look at Velvet, who looked nervously. Velvet, you don't have to be scared. There are others like you who know the pain. If anyone tries to say something about it, then I'll give him the talk. I assured her she'll not be harassed any further. I'm not going to keep letting shit like that happen while I'm here. She deserves to be the nice genuine friend, yeah. Totally meant that. She nods and raises her hand. Cardin scoffed, but I glared at him, which he stopped. Dreadful, simply dreadful. He shook his head with sympathy. Remember, students, it is precisely this kind of ignorance that breeds violence. Life lessons, there'll always be violence in this world, and mine as well. Just look at what happened to White Fang. Oof, I don't think you should have mentioned that near Blake. Then again, everyone here except me doesn't know that Blake was a part of the White Fang. Now, which one of you young scholars can tell me what many theorists believe to be the turning point in the third year of the war? He asks everyone. I look at Weiss, who raises her hand. Yes? He said. The battle at Fort Castle. With a smug look on her face, she said. Precisely. Oobleck thanked her for answering the question. And, who can tell me the advantage the Faunus had over General Lagoon's forces? He looks at other people to answer his question. I look at John, who is currently Sleo shit. I forgot I should have sat next to Ja then again. He needs to man up anyway. Cardin flips a folded paper and throws it to John, who wakes up because of it. Hey! Oh. Oobleck looks at John and quickly zooms in front of him with a smile. Mr. Ark. Finally contributing to class. This is excellent. Excellent. I'm pretty sure Pyrrha helped out. Well, try to help him out with the question he's likely going to get. What is the answer? He asked in an exciting manner. I can't honestly quite tell if Dr. Obleck's either just playing with him or serious with him. It's hard to figure that out. John shook his head. The answer. The doc nodded. The advantage of the Faunus had over that guy's stuff. Yes, that guy, clearly a general's name, is called that guy. That would be hilarious to see or read about a name like that being here in Remnant. John looks at our way and gives us the look of please help me. Pyrrha gladly helps him out by doing the hand gestures. Although she coughed quietly, we both turned to see her. Well, Velvet's just been writing notes really. She points at her eyes and cups her hand in front of her eyes as a sort of goggles. I sighed and quickly rip out a piece of paper, writing down the obvious answer. Velvet sees what I'm doing and shook her head. I shrugged and shook my head, holding it out for John to see it. Night vision. He finally answered. Cardin scoffed and looked away. Oobleck saw his behavior. Why correct Mr. Ark? I'm glad you're paying attention. He sighed in relief. Now then, who would like to explain it? He mouthed thank you to my way. I gave him a thumbs up. Dr. Oobleck spoke up when the atmosphere turned quiet. Cardin. Perhaps you would care to share your thoughts on the subject? Heh, it's fucking time to get him. Cardin puts his foot on the table and smirks. Well, I know it's a lot easier to train an animal than a soldier. Oobleck simply shook his head. Pyrrha cut him off when she looked at him. You're not the most open-minded of individuals, are you, Cardin? He looked offended and narrowed his eyes to her. What? You got a problem? He tried to sound tough, but hey, when you have me on deputy duty on this guy, it's hilarious to see him sweating bullets. I nodded and looked at him.
Yes, Carden, we got a problem in our hands. I would like it if you can shut up and leave. That'll solve our problem big time, man. I smirked. The students laughed when I said that. He clenches his fist and groans. Para raised her hand. Yes, Ms. Nikos? She stood up when she got called. Many faunuses have nearly perfect sight in the dark. Carden growls. Blake gave me a nod in respect. General Lagoon was inexperienced and made the mistake of trying to ambush the faunus in their sleep. Oobleck nodded with haste. Blake continued. His massive army was outmatched, and the general was captured. She finished and pointed at Carden. Perhaps if he'd paid attention in class, he wouldn't have been remembered as such a failure. Oh! Everyone oh-oh'd. Carden got up with his fist ready to punch her. Oi, there's a rule about threatening students. Isn't that right, Dr. Oobleck? I stood up and pumped my fists together on the low with a smirk. I can feel my eyes glowing in excitement. Yes, that is correct. Now, Mr. Winchester. Please take your seat. You too as well, Mr. Valiant. He and I locked our gazes and he backed out, sitting down. John snickers out loud. Damn it, John, one job to not get in trouble. Oobleck appears in front of him. You and Mr. Ark can both see me after class for additional readings. Oh. He groaned. Now. Moving on. That's what I thought. I smiled. Velvet, witnessing it all, gave me a smile. You've been standing up against Carden now lately, huh? I shrugged. Well, he's in my bully list to be taught a lesson. So if he tries to do anything funny, I'll be there to stop it. I grinned and sat back down. Ring. Ah, what a shame, oh well. Remember, class, that you should always take notes and to study, and study. Everyone got up and left, except John and Carden, who had to stay to deal with his lecture. I look at Velvet and she looks back. I looked away, nervousness starts to appear. Fuck, I'm horrible when talking to girls by being myself. Oh my god, I can't take this feeling in my heart. I coughed and turned to face her again. I'll see you again tomorrow? She nodded happily. We both waved goodbye. After Velvet left the scene, I saw John's team getting out. I waved to them and simply walked towards their way. So, anyone's going to wait for John? Both Ren and Nora shook their heads. Para nodded though. Alright, I'll see you two couples later. I teased. Because let me be honest, that song itself spells literally ship. But meh, it'll eventually happen between the two. She kept stuttering and kept going on with, we're not together, I mean we've been dash. Ren drags her out of the halls. I simply chuckled. Para did as well. After half an hour of what I could hear is non-stop gibberish, Oobleck quickly zooms away to God knows where. I see John tired and Carden shoves him. Ow. Para notices and catches him. She helps him stand up. I stare at Carden, who runs away. TCH. You know, I can break his legs. She said. John sighs, but Para has a light bulb appear on top of her head. I have an idea. She drags John with her. Here, come with me. He looks at me, thinking I should come and stop her. I shrugged in response. Ah. I put my hand to the back of my head and scratched my hair a bit. He. Alright, I'll let these two do their thing. And once Carden tries to manipulate John, I jump in and stop that from happening. Perfect plan if I do say so myself. I'm not letting Carden manipulate him for the bastard he is. If I remember correctly, the talk starts in the rooftops on our dorm. It would be pretty hard to get there by ladder, and I don't want to do that. Luckily, I know this one guy who will help me get up to the roof. I smirked, taking out a gas hat with the same color of the proto-gas hats, with the design cover being gray already. The design has a mascot that looks like a jet with shark teeth and eyes while shooting out bullets.
The title of the game is called Jet Combat. Beacon Academy, Ace's Room.
I'll wait until it's the right time to crash into the deal. For now, I just want to see how's Kuroto and my Grimmons Toro, Nero, and Arrow have been doing. I opened the door with a smile on my face and who dash.
What the hell?
Everything in the room was a mess, claws, fire being put out, craters by each walls.
Kuroto woke up and saw my obvious jaw going down. Welcome back. He laughed nervously. What happened?
I asked him, looking at the disaster before me.
I see Toro, Nero, and Arrow taking a nap on the ruined bed. Don't tell me what I think caused this? I grumbled.
He nodded. High, whenever you use a gas hat. It syncs with these three, so when you use level 5, they have achieved a destructive power.
One I've never thought could be this bad. He grimaced. How many lives did you lose? I yelled in worry.
He pointed at the bar next to him.
89. Holy shit. My mouth left opened. He stood up and wiped away any dirt left on his clothes.
Hey chum, but since you're now able to control level 5,
I think this won't happen once again.
Kuroto, what did they look like?
I asked him.
He started sweating a bit. I guess you could say that they grew wings, able to breathe fire, and sharp claws.
Whoa, no fucking way.
Dude, that's fucking sweet. They're basically the definition of Dragon's Peak. If I use Dangerous Zombie and Dragon Night Hunter Z together, then that mean. I would advise you don't go too overwhelming with the power. Combining it with Dangerous Zombie could be a risky one at that.
He warned me. I nodded.
Right, they'll grow their sizes, but also go wild with the dragon blood. It's a great but yet dangerous power, but plenty of risks of doing so.
Damn, I'm pumped. Because once the invasion the battle in Beacon, I'll be able to stop them. Only when it's necessary to do so.
I have to be responsible of my choices when it's time.
So, is there anything else I missed? I asked once more. Hi, students here wanted to shut these three rather permanently.
His voice went deep at the last part.
My eyes glowed. I clenched my fist. But I stopped them because Kami forbid them from ruining his prophecy's followers. He laughed at that and sat back down. I smiled and took a deep breath.
Thank you, Kuroto, for protecting them.
It's fine. So then, what are you going to do?
That trip I heard was going to be in 2 weeks, he said, crossing his arms.
I scratched the back of my head. Well, I guess I could explore more about Vale then. What about you? I asked.
I'll likely be busy. I need to finish the preparations.
It's important, so to speak. I nodded.
Alright, I wish I could bring these three with me, but I can't.
I slumped. He patted my head.
It's fine, I'll take care of them.
He coughed.
I raised a brow, but I decided to not ask any further, putting my things away.
And opening the door again. Where are you going, young man? He asked in a father tone. I started to sweat. John wanted my help on something, so I thought, why not? I gulped.
His stern face changed into a smile.
Oh, okay. Wow, just like that?
Not going to question that sudden change of father mood, but oh well, I got a start plan, stop Carden's blackmail. After stepping out of the room, I closed the door and proceeded to head outside.
Laters. I waved goodbye to Kuroto. He waved back as well.
Once I got outside of the dorm, I took out just the right gas hat that'll do the job. I pushed the black lever once I did.
Jet Combat.
A hologram screen appeared behind me, the title itself Jet Combat, the jet fighter onto the left side. The colors themselves were monochrome look. Suddenly a robot popped out of the screen, going crazy around the air, then appears in front of me. As if it's going crazy just waiting to be onto the air. The robot itself is called Combat Gamer, but since it's the Proto-Gas Hat. Proto-Combat Gamer. Which honestly sounds cool. Its appearance itself is a small black and gray fighter aircraft-themed rider machine. With heavy machine guns as arms. And visors on top of its head. Putting on the gamer driver onto my waist, connecting it automatically. I slotted the gas hat into the finisher holder. Gashado. PCG opened its mouth and transformed into its own body, now wearing an armor that resembles the jet station. But without the mask, having a complete black jetpack on. The heavy machine guns disappeared into pixels. Jetpack mode, it honestly looks cool without the rider form. Surprisingly, I don't think I've seen any riders use it without being onto their respective level forms themselves. It would honestly solve all problems with travel or air really. I took a deep breath and focused on my pressure. The jetpack going up slowly. Oh, thank God. I sighed in relief. Making sure I don't go overboard, heading on top of the rooftops. Beacon Academy, roof, night. After the bells have rung, classmates going back to their different dorms formed by each year. John and Pira started walking on top of the roof, likely to talk about something due to John's many faults. Lights turning off, a nice peaceful breeze flowing through them. John looks down and steps back. Pira, I know that I'm going through a hard time right now, but I'm not that depressed. He mumbled. I can always be a farmer or something. She shook her head and shoved John away from looking down. And no. That's not why I brought you up here. She sighs. John, I know you're having a difficult time in class. And that you're still not the strongest of fighters, so... She takes a sharp breath and smiled. I want to help you. He looked perplexed. What? She pointed at the roof they're standing on. We can train up here after class where no one can bother us. John scratched his head. You think I need help? She shook her head and no. No, that's not what I meant. He frowned. But you just said it. He looked away. John, everybody needs a little push from time to time. She looked at the glowing beacon. It doesn't make you any different from the rest of us, well, except Ace. You made it to Beacon, that speaks volumes of what you're capable of. He turns around and muttered it loud enough for Pira to hear. You're wrong, I don't belong here. Pira stepped up. That's a terrible thing to say, of course you do. He looks back with eyes narrowed. No, I don't. He sighs once again. She stopped her tracks and looked surprised. I wasn't really accepted into Beacon. Beacon. He looks at the tower. What do you mean? She stuttered. I mean, I didn't go to combat school. I didn't pass any tests. I didn't earn my spot at this academy. He said. I lied. I got my hands on some fake transcripts and I lied. She looked shocked. What? But, why? John put his arms down. 'Cause this is what I've always wanted to be. My father, my grandfather, and his father before him were all warriors. They were all heroes. He looked away. I wanted to be one too. I was just never good enough. Pira grabs hold of John's right shoulder. Then, let me help you. He moves away from her grip. I don't want help. I don't want to be the damsel in distress. I want to be the hero. She stopped and frowned. John. I'm tired of being the lovable idiot stuck in the tree while his friends fight for their lives. Don't you understand? He looks down, his tone getting much higher. If I can't do this on my own, then what good am I? Pira tries to hold John's right hand, but he backs away from her. Just leave me alone. Okay. He yelled at her. She looked away and a tear can be seen from her eye falling. If that's what you think is best. She leaves, not looking back. John starts to walk back to his dorm, but a snide laugh can be heard. He turns around to see Carden.
Carden gets up into the roof and smirk can be seen from his face. "Oh, John, I couldn't help but overhear you two from my dorm room," he said, crossing his arms with a grin at that. "So, you snuck into Beacon, huh? I've gotta say, John, I've never expected you to be such a rebel." John paled. "Please. Carden, please don't tell anyone." Carden shrugged John. "Come on. I'd never rat out a friend like that," he said. John looked confused. A friend? Carden puts his right arm around John's neck, albeit tightly. "Of course. We're friends now, Johnny boy. And the way I see it, as long as you're there for me when I need you, we'll be friends for a long time." He lets go of John, who gasps and falls down. He continues, "That being said, I really don't have time to do those extra readings Dr. RWBY gave us today." Carden grabs John's hair tight. "Think you could take care of that for me, buddy?" John tries to get Carden to let go of his hair, but he couldn't. But not until a bullet was heard near them. A fast bullet stopped dead in the tracks between the two. Carden let go of his hair and growled. "Who's there?" "You're likely going to guess correctly once I do. I'm also pretty sure that you don't exactly fit the bill as buddy material for John." A voice loud enough for the two to hear. They both looked up to see a man wearing a not-so-proper Beacon uniform, but yet he's flying. How it's possible is what looks to be an armor that's likely about a jetpack hung onto his back. "Hello?" He smiled. "Ace!" John exclaimed. Carden's smirk turned into disgust. "Why are you here?" he yelled. Ace steers carefully, slowly landing onto the roof. After he landed, he takes out the gas hat, which his jetpack disappears into pixels. He smirked. "I thought there was something quite fishy when Carden was getting on top of the roof here. So I thought, hey, why not stop him whatever he was going to do?" Changing into a blank expression, his cold eyes stare at Carden. "I already knew that John used fake transcripts to get into Beacon." John looked quite surprised when Ace mentioned that. "Why, you knew this whole time?" His only response was a nod. "How?" he asked. "I have my ways." I shrugged with a smirk. Carden then tries to play it cool and laughs. "Oh, so you heard that he's not worth being he dash." "Wrong." I interrupted him, pointing a finger to John. "John, you have potential to be a great leader with your team. But you can't act like a dumbass solo warrior who thinks they can just be a hero by himself. There's some who has friends, teachers, mentors that can teach them to get better along the way." John shook his head. "Ace, this isn't dash." I narrowed my eyes to make the atmosphere tense. "No, John, don't even think of finishing that sentence." I growled that caused him to stop. "I hate to admit it, but Ashbin's good with finding out what's a transcript and what isn't. He still accepted you into Beacon." Carden scoffed. "So you're saying that dash?" I cut him off with a simple shove, in order to separate the two away. Yes, Professor Ashbin knew that John used transcripts in. John's jaw dropped onto the ground in shock. So why didn't he dash?" Again I stopped him. "Because he knows better than to not accept you. At first you may suck. But later, you'll get better. Not saying that you can, doing it by yourself, no. I meant as a team you have with you." Once I said that, Carden growled. "So Carden, I'd recommend you to get the fuck out here. And if I ever see you try to mess with my friends, you're going to lose something, all right." I grabbed his collar and looked at his face. My victorious smirk now showing. When I let go, he starts to get frustrated and decides to leave. I crossed my arms and sighed in relief. "There," I said out loud enough for John to hear. "I don't know what to say," he said. I hushed him and patted his right shoulder. "Looks like you're going to have to talk to your team. Better yet, Pyrrha, because you owe her an apology, you little sack of shit," I said with a deep tone.
I tighten my hold on his shoulder, he hisses and goes on one knee. All right. I chuckled, releasing my strength from his shoulder. He looked quite confused. I can't believe he knew, this whole time. He said. I shrugged, hey, at least he's right that you have potential. I stretched my back and pulled a yawn. Well, looks like it's time to hit the hay, John. Remember that we're always there for you, man. Whenever you're ready to tell them the truth, I'll be there. I jabbed a thumb to myself and left the scene with a surprised John. Thanks, man. I waved it off and headed off to my room. I'll always be there, for everyone. To be continued.